Hello, everybody, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on your screens. And we have the pleasure today, during the European Championship in German-speaking Europe, having a lot of guests in lovely Germany. And in most regions, we have covered on overcome the floodings, and we have lovely weather and sunshine, not only in our hearts, but also from the outside, which is cool and good. We are in the position that we are very grateful that we, after two lately taking place sapphires, catched hold of Shardul Vikram, our guest of today. I would like to introduce him short on my side and then give him the opportunity to add some stuff by himself. Shardul is the Sales Vice President and Head of the Industries and Customer Experience. It's called INCX, Intelligence and Incubation Unit at SAP. That is quite unique to combine the industry and the customer experience with artificial intelligence. And that is something which gives us a fabulous opportunity, as we are very, very curious about how that combination does open new opportunities. In that department, they are building a lot of new solution approaches, the next gen AI-powered functionalities in the industry and CX products, the new AI-powered CX companion apps, that shall make enterprise software proactive and contextual. And they also work on some fabulous other stuff, such as enterprise-first NFT management solutions to enable customers to leverage Web3 in their business processes. Furthermore, they are working and enabling circular and sustainable strategies, which is an important thing in our times, for our physical and digital stores with SAP Recommerce. Previously, Shardul has gained several expertise in the activity platform group as Salesforce, focusing on developing the next generation of conversational intelligence enterprise apps. And now I would like to give the floor to you, Shardul, to add up some of the introduction points which I will have missed.
All right. Thank you, Ralph, Thomas, and Marshall. Thanks for having me. Excited to be on the show and talk about two of my favorite things, which is customer experience and AI. So just quickly with respect to introductions, so I'm currently the CTO and head of data and AI for SAP Industries and CX, which includes the intelligence and incubation group. And I've been at SAP for 2 years, a little over 2 years at this point. Yeah. And I joined to create this particular unit called Intelligence and Incubation, with this notion of how do we infuse AI into the business processes and build our products intelligent from the ground up. Prior to that, I was in the area of AI, I've worked on distributed systems and AI at Salesforce, was part of a startup called IQ that Salesforce acquired. And then I also had spent around 4 years, little over 4 years, or around 4 years at Microsoft, building out the OneDrive product. So, and what else can I touch on? I live in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area, right?
Cool.
And I'm originally from India, so I was born there, and then I moved here to the United States in 2009. So yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation.
And why SAP? Let's start with the blunt question. Why SAP?
Because it's one of the few, when you look at what are the companies that have withstood the test of time and have gained the trust of their customers and still possess immense potential in terms of what more it can achieve. There are very few names in that bucket, and SAP is one of them, right? It has a 50-year storied and glorious legacy of helping customers, primarily, let's say, in the ERP domain. And over time, we have added more enterprise apps to our portfolio. And I think CX, or customer experience, especially now, presents a huge opportunity for us as a company. So that's why I'm excited to be part of this particular group, right? It's it's no surprise that when you look into the entire customer experience landscape, there is a long way for us to go in terms of achieving market leadership. But then with every challenge, there is an opportunity, and like I and my team are here to take hold of that opportunity and make the most of it.
Well, speaking of CX, what is it as you understand it? How would you define it? Let's set some terms first.
Right. So CX, which again stands for customer experience, right? So think of it as every time a customer interacts with a business, right? Like it falls under the purview of what you call customer experience, right? Now, our focus primarily is on the digital channels, on the, let's say, the CRM and e-commerce perspective. But now when you add the industry lens, now it includes things like retail, which includes physical stores as well, right? And then we expand it out to ERP as for in the back office. Now it includes where the goods are actually manufactured, right? Like where are they stored? How are they actually shipped and delivered, right? So every time there is a customer who reaches out to a business or has interaction with the business, it falls within the purview of customer experience.
Sounds good. And you, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you are in a place that is combining customer experience, industry focus, and generative AI. Those are three moving targets. How do you put them together successfully? It's a nice, simple, easy question for you to.
Yes, we can spend 3 hours just talking about this. So, but very quickly, right? Like so industries are the lens that, for example, enterprises and businesses take with respect to the specific segment they're in, right? Like, so for example, a company which operates in the retail space, there are specific nuances that are specific to retail, right? Like then they think about, hey, like how do I actually do promotions, and how do I do omni-channel commerce, which spans my physical stores as well as my digital e-commerce stores. And think of AI, and now more specifically generative AI, as a very, very important foundational layer that helps the customer experience layer, but also because industries are verticals, right, which cut across the entire CX landscape, it ends up helping the industries layer as well. So the way we think about it is like we focus on building out the foundational capabilities first, which improve the building blocks of a particular vertical solution, which could be a product by itself. Let's say our e-commerce solution, or our sales cloud, or service cloud, right? So these are products that are used by certain teams, and now we have certain capabilities in there, which could be a AI capability, and then you have a industry specific version of it that gears more towards retail or CP or automotive or utilities or any of the other 25 industries that we operate on.
So where do the models that you are using come from?
Sorry?
Where do the models that you are using come from? So what is the mix that you are using there?
Right, yeah. We have a bunch of in-house models that we have built over time, right? Like, because again, like AI is getting a lot of love and hype right now with the introduction of generative AI, but this whole AI revolution started around what I remember 2013, 2014 was when we were at the first hype cycle. And that time a lot of focus was on predictive models or classification models. And a lot of them were built in-house, right? Like, and they are still going to be built in-house. And now with the introduction of generative AI, now you have these amazing partners like OpenAI and Mistral and Meta Llama and so on, Anthropic, right? And so we use a combination of the two, right? Like we have our in-house models, and then we use a fine-tuned partner LLM model.
And how do you manage the security aspects in combining these different layers?
Right.
And partners?
Yeah. So there are a few parts to security, right? Like, so one is in general, right? Like trust is, and I'll speak broadly, like trust as a topic is very, very important for enterprise software, right? Like, and that goes across the industry, right? Like, because customers are trusting us with their valuable data, with the valuable business processes, and their businesses that run on top of it, right? So their sort of like their livelihood depends on our systems being up, our systems being secure, and our systems being compliant. And the same goes for generative AI, right? Now we want to introduce generative AI because at each and every layer, because we truly think that it's a truly transformational technology. And we could talk more about like why it is really that transformational, even going beyond what ChatGPT can do. But these pillars of security, privacy, ethics, compliance, they are non-negotiable. So they have to be built, they have to be incorporated, whether you use AI or not. Now, more specifically, what we do is, right, like, so one, whether a interaction happens with our own in-house models or with a partner model, there are a few things that we do. One, we strip out all PII and personal information, right? Like we obfuscate it. Second, we have zero data retention, so that like that particular data cannot be used by the models to actually train it further. So it prevents accidental leakages. And third, we have a very comprehensive audit log, right? Like who accessed the system, what calls were made, how did the interactions look like. And these are just three of a much, I would say, a complex and sophisticated trust layer that we have operating between our systems as well and AI.
Now, getting a little into the extrinsics or intrinsics, not extrinsics, into the intrinsics of those models and partners, and looking into ethics. So all these models have been somehow trained, and it appears that this is, in most cases, a bit less than ethically, or happened a bit less than ethically. So if now I, as a customer, say I do trust to work ethically, and SAP uses something that has been built not so ethically, isn't that a bit of a dilemma?
If it were to be true, yes, right? Like some at this point,
and we know. I mean, that's proven. We know it.
now, okay, I would put it this way, right? Like, so there are certain lawsuits in progress, right? And again, I won't jump the gun yet, though. I completely personally, I believe that every creator, whether it be a writer or a journalist or like social influencers on all of you, right? Like they should be able to monetize their content, right? Or like they should be given credit for their work. So that part I think I completely agree with, and personally I'm totally on point on like figuring out a framework via which any technology, in this case, let's say the LLMs, which train itself on someone else's work, there has to be some sort of attribution for that, like especially if that's considered an IP. So now I'm hoping that we'll reach a ground where that actually happens, right? Like we are already seeing it in recent news. There was a partnership that was announced that, okay, there'll be some amount of monetary compensation that will go. So I think, look, we are what, 1 year and 4 months, 5 months into the launch of ChatGPT, and when the whole generative AI boom came about, right? It's still pretty early. There are a lot of things that we are figuring out from a nation state perspective, like at the UN, EU, like what does it actually mean? So so I think it's like too early to say that like whether it's completely unethical or not. But I'm very sure if it turns out to be the case, then we have other ways, right? Like we are training our own
My
models.
choice of word, I said less than ethically.
Less.
Yeah.
Not completely unethical. There are 50 shades of gray, right?
Well,
Yeah,
that's a
it's a
different
spectrum.
topic.
Yeah.
And the general challenge is what you have taken into account is that you checked up with the European Artificial Intelligence Act under development, that you have cross-checked if you meet those requirements or that you are even better than those requirements. And what I doing my homework on that one, I came to the point that in the several areas where you openly discuss that you are even a bit stronger in reliability and trust, you do not have it into your marketing brands or one of your strong mission statements like your former employer does have it, but you take trust as a very important thing, as you stated in our warm-up and in your introduction. I would like to jump a bit back into my curiosity on where AI is helping in the CX transformation. As you said, the digital transformation opportunity we do have. And I would love to hear, for instance, some samples, some examples where you made it happen in the last 2 years as the combination of already built-in AI capabilities and now the big move that it's easier for the normal user to do something with it creates new windows of opportunity and curiosity on my end.
Like, yeah. I mean, so I don't know if you got a chance to check out Ritu's keynote. So she's the chief product officer and my manager here at SAP at Sapphire. So we had Nestle on stage, and Nestle CIO, they were talking about how they actually use some of our innovations and AI capabilities to power the broad range of digital experiences that Nestle has, right? Like, so they have like over 2,500 products, operate in pretty much every country in the world, and they have to do it at a scale, right? Like they are retailers and they do B2B, B2C, B2All, right? Like, so you could have every possible combination of how would a customer experience flow look like. It's probably applicable to Nestle. And it was just amazing to see like how working together with us, like how more specifically SAP CX is helping Nestle achieve amazing and delightful customer experiences using our features and products, which includes AI capabilities as well.
So what do they see as valuable? As valuable scenarios, valuable use cases for AI-driven processes or AI-supported processes?
Yeah, I mean, tons of. So just to pick a few examples, like for example, when you think about e-commerce, for example, right? In e-commerce, search is widely powered by AI. You see product recommendations, which is like, hey, like this is what I have bought before, or based on where I'm from and my past buying history, I see the right product recommendations that would allow me to easily put something in the cart and check out, right? Like, so product recommendations being another one. In case of the CRM workflows, let's say service, like service is again a classic case where AI could truly be transformational, right? Like someone is coming in with a support ticket or a request saying that, hey, like, for example, the machine that I bought is broken. Now, how do we bring up, in this case, like a complete 360 profile of the customer, so the agent who is trying to resolve that issue, it actually knows, oh, you know what, this is who Thomas is, this is what he has bought, so that I won't have to keep on asking, hey, can you please give me the order number? And you're like, oh, where do I even find that order number now, right? Like, and we should be able to have this data, and we do have this data, but it's about using AI to break those silos and bring up the right insights in front of the right personas. And then this is where the whole proactive and contextual aspect of the intelligence comes into the picture.
Okay, now let me yank your chain a little, because what these scenarios that you just now mentioned are pre-OpenAI scenarios.
They're what?
Pre-OpenAI scenarios.
Yeah.
They worked very well already before ChatGPT times. So what is in that lens or in that context the added value that generative or derivative AI brings into the picture? I like to call it derivative AI.
Fair enough. Yeah. I'm like, the generative part is derived from the data that it's trained on. So yes, you could do that. No, but you're right. Look, so it's the specific use cases and business processes I have called out. They have existed for a while, and rightly so, right? Because this is how businesses work. Now, where generative AI comes in is it makes it so much easier and better to serve the same use cases. So let me give you an example of the typical chatbot interaction that all of us at some point, I'm very sure we have had, right? Like where like you type in one wrong word, or if you don't form the query in the right word, then it goes back into a rule-based flow. Now the power of generative AI is the fact that it now can understand natural language in ways that earlier it was not really possible, or it would have taken a lot of work to actually keep on tuning and training that model on large and larger sorts of data. Now that has become much more easier, right? The second is the whole reasoning aspect of it, right? Like now, again, depending on, there are two broad camps in academia right now. One is like, hey, like we will achieve AGI real soon. Another one is like, no, generative AI is actually, it's a detour. But what you can't argue against is that pretty much for the first time, we now have AI which could reason on top of the data that it interacts with. So even if I form my query in a wrong way, or just let's say it's not my native language and I have to type in English, and maybe I would I would think of something in, for example, let's say Hindi and translate it to English, it might not be a properly constructed sentence. But using generative AI, we could still derive the intent and make that user flow so much better. And now coming back to product recommendations, and this is where I'll plug in, like, so for example, we announced the shopping assistant at Sapphire.
Right.
And where we see recommendations going is, think of it like it being more intent-driven rather than pure interaction-driven. So instead of me coming in and saying, oh, you know what, I want to buy a cap which could help prevent like a sunny weather, right? Or windy weather, right? Like so that's an outcome. But what if I could come in and say, like I'm traveling to Hawaii in May, or I'm traveling to Hawaii in September, right? Like what should my gear be? And now it's more intent-driven. Like you're traveling to Hawaii, you have said when you're traveling to Hawaii, which is in May, which is in September. So now I could actually say, you know what, I could look up, oh, this is what the weather in Hawaii would be. This is who you are. This is what you have bought from us in the past. Based on what we see, and these are things that you would need, right? So you could imagine the whole e-commerce experience getting widely like transformative and much more user-friendly, rather than me being on the hunt of finding the right product.
Which I believe. Still, let me dig a little deeper there.
Yes.
Because if you are saying this is so much better, which is likely right, can you quantify so much? Is there any data already out there that supports statements like these? I mean, every vendor is making these statements. And I, as a buyer, I can say, yeah, right, or I can say, yeah. And so I can really believe it or not. So, and some of your customers and some of other people's customers are already using these systems for some times. So what are the measurements that they looked at, and then how far did they change?
Right. Yeah. So the KPIs, right, like, or the key measurement of how do we judge the success of any new technology that we roll out, that does not necessarily change just because we're using generative AI, right? Like, so for example, if I'm running a service business, I'm running contact centers and support centers, my units of measurement are still, hey, how many customers were happily serviced, and what was the efficiency like? Right? So those KPIs don't change. Now it's about, okay, like if we introduce this new technology, how much more uplift do we see, which is the promise, right? And again, right, like I said earlier, we are still very early into this thing, right? Like it will take some time for the data to be adopted, for the data to come in over a period of time, right? Like with anytime you adopt a new technology, there is an initial uptick, right? Because everyone is incentivized to make it work. Now we have to see it working for a prolonged duration, for the data to come in, and then we say, you know what, like we have seen that over the past year or over the past 1.5, 2 years, we have been running this, and it has helped us achieve these metrics. So this can only happen with time, right? So
it does. It must happen over time. I mean,
yeah,
whenever an implementer says project is successful because I just switched the flicked the switch to live, then this is kind of a joke, right? So
Yeah, that's when the problems start.
yeah. So, but
Very fair
still, from
observation.
even over time, so customers like Nestle, for example, and many others, I'm quite sure as well, are running that for some time. So what do you hear from them?
I mean, so far things are positive, right? Like, so we are actually seeing the metrics move in the right direction. And look, there is a reason every business, every executive, every company in the world is like, hey, like this truly is transformational, and it will change the way users interact with software, right? And the reason is, one, that like we believe, like I was saying earlier, like we now have capabilities that were very hard to do. The second part of it is, it's also a capability that's yielding results much faster than any other transformation that has happened in the past, right? Like, so for example, I've been in the business of like building AI and AI models, right, like past 10, 14 years, right? Never have I seen enterprise adoption and consumer adoption happen at the same rate. It's actually amazing to see. And the second part of it is, right, like earlier, like most of the data, most of the models, they required a historical set of data that and it need to be fine-tuned, sort of like, hey, like you adopt our solution, and then 6 months down the line, you'll start seeing benefits because you would have had so much data, or we would have collected data from some other means to make it useful. Now all of that is no longer true. So we will see faster results. We are seeing faster results, faster deals. But again, like I'm not one of those guys who will say, hey, like everything is solved and everything is hunky-dory and we have won. No, it's a process, and then time plays a big part of it.
As I did.
One of the
sorry,
go ahead, Ralph. One of the concerns that I had regarding industry and consumer adoption of AI at the same time was that the massive uptake in consumer interest was rushing businesses forward with AI faster than they were really comfortable developing it. Have you seen that at all?
Yeah, I will put it in a slightly different words, and let me know if it captures the essence, right? Like, so there is a massive appetite to adopt AI and generative AI to quickly achieve better and faster business results. But as in essence, I think what you're asking is, but are most businesses there? Are they at a place where they can actually adopt it, right? Because one, it's about like, how do you bring the data together? Like, how do you actually create systems which will help you take advantage of AI, of this of generative AI, to create insights that are so much more useful. But are all customers there yet? And it's again, it's a mixed bag, right? Like, some do have mature data practices, they have actually broken through the data silos, or they are willing to work with us to think about, hey, how do we break down the data silos so that AI is so much better and useful for us, whereas some are starting on that journey. So it's sort of a mixed bag, and depending on where each business is, each customer is, someone will see very higher yields and some might see lower yields.
I see.
I
had the example such as, for a longer term and collecting data and then checking up, you have had the experience just in the sports application, which is now called Sports One and has been developed over the last 10 years, where it was Match Insights, and it helped the German team and the German Football Association very much on the World Championship, and it's now one of the favorite toys and tools not only the German Football Association is using, but the Worldwide Football Association is using it as an information source for the referees as well. So there are stories which are probably not the typical ones one would have seen in SAP, And it is very interesting that with Match Inside, the World Championship in football 2014, Thomas, was the one where
Not the last one, yeah.
no, I'm
Technology
not
probably
happy
helped them to
about
drop out of
Dubai
the
and all that. I was taking the step back, such as long term, 10 years, and built in AI and the knowledge and the capabilities that is now developing in an area where over 1,000 users in application are having benefits out of this. So going from benefits, and that Thomas and you are big Apple enthusiasts. What is the benefit of the cooperation on the hardware end with Apple and your combination of artificial intelligence tools such as your own Joule, the Microsoft Copilot, and what you mentioned, OpenAI and Llama from Meta?
Right. Yeah. Look, the collaboration with Apple or the partnership with Apple, it's in the broad area that we call spatial computing, right? Like so this is, and when you think about spatial computing, the immediate benefits, the immediate areas of particular industries where we see massive benefits are, it would be in places like manufacturing, or where like someone is actually, or people working on heavy machinery, or serving or servicing a heavy machinery, or in warehouses, where as you're working through these physical constructs, you can actually see insights, right? Like which are delivered to you on your spatial device, in this case like the Apple Vision Pro, powered by SAP systems. So and I was actually talking with a partner at Orlando, and they were like, imagine today someone who navigates the warehouses and the manufacturing plants. They have a handheld device. So one of their hands is actually occupied, and then they navigate through the warehouse or whatever work they had to do with the other hand, right? Like now, and then it's a simple thing. Like imagine now with spatial computing, like you get much more richer insights because you're not limited by the small screen that you hold in your head. Yeah. And now you could take advantage of both hands, right? Like, so it's spatial computing is an area that we'll see more and more traction going forward for sure. Especially when the prices come down and it becomes much more manageable.
When it gets affordable. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. With respect to Microsoft, right? Like probably the other company at the very beginning, when Thomas asked me why SAP, and I was talking about companies with storied legacy, probably Microsoft is a company, right, which falls in that bucket. And the notion of two of our co-pilots, like our Gen AI co-pilot, which is Joule, and Microsoft's co-pilot, actually working together in tandem is so powerful. Like imagine I'm using the Microsoft Dynamics co-pilot. I'm looking at a slide deck, and I'm preparing a presentation for some exec briefing, and I need some input from my CRM. So today I would have to go to my CRM, I'd have to open up Sales Cloud, I'd have to navigate to the account or opportunity, and then find out what I need. What if I could just ask the Microsoft Copilot to fetch that information for me? Behind the scene, it reaches out to Joule, which is our Gen AI Copilot, and it fetches the same information. And then vice versa. Right? Like if I'm working in Sales Cloud and like I'm interacting with Joule to get certain things done, and I need some information which either sits on my calendar or some slide deck or a new Word doc that I prepared, I could now just ask Joule that, and Joule will fetch that information from Copilot. So this whole harmonious nature of the two Gen AI systems working together, like it does hold immense promise.
That's a cool.
How is it orchestrated right now?
Sorry?
So how do you orchestrate or manage the orchestration layer between those various AI personas?
Yeah. So there is, I'm not sure if I'm privy, I can divulge the information of the actual implementation details, but you could.
No, we don't want trade secrets. Yes, we want trade secrets, of course.
yes. But fair to say, like it's a joint collaboration with SAP and Microsoft, right? Both of our teams are actively engaged in figuring out and delivering on this, what you call the orchestration, right? Like, because it's, again, as you can imagine, like two systems owned by two very different companies working together, understanding the same language, like what intents belong where, like what if how do we actually even make Copilot understand that, hey, like this query should go to Joule and vice versa, right? Like, so yes, there is a lot of
that's the
work.
part that I meant, because somehow, I mean, it's like the four of us collaborating, right?
Yeah.
We are four specialists, and we need to know where it's better to ask Shardul or Ralph or Marshall. Well, I need to know that,
Right.
so or where I rather do it myself, yeah, or the other way around, yeah. So where you ask me, so this somehow is, well, that can be made rule based, but this is kind of old style AI. This is a very old style AI.
Yeah, well, if you see and take into account that the relationship between working together on certain aspects of SAP and Microsoft is vivid since 2006, as they were the ones with the bridge product. As you were in the Microsoft environment or you were in the SAP environment, you could open Windows, which came as a sidebar or a bit larger than a sidebar, and gave you some information from the other one. I believe that they know some tricks they probably don't talk about, but which make it happen.
Right. Yeah. And I think like what Thomas you just said, like it's pretty much right. Like the general thinking is that, like, ultimately, like let's say between the four of us, we need to figure out like which questions should be handled by whom. It ultimately boils down to, like, for example, like Marshall could be an expert in everything, but let's say we assign some topics to Marshall and each one of us, and then it boils down to figuring out how does that routing work, right? So in a nutshell, it will be some version and variation of that, without divulging any further details. Like I'd say, but in a nutshell, it has to work that way.
Okay, you did make a hint on partner talks and that you had C-level talks. And we were a bit curious because having Orlando C-level people to talk to you, and in Europe, in Spain, in Barcelona, some days later, what were they addressing with you where they would like to see you support them in their businesses? What were the typical things? Couldn't you do something in that area?
Right. Yeah. So a lot of the conversations that I was involved in, they were specifically around data and AI, right? Like, which are the areas that I own. And more specifically, they're about one of the new tools and new solutions that we launched. It's available for everyone to purchase and use as of 2 months ago. It's called the CX AI Toolkit, right? And this is how do we use generative AI to give proactive and contextual intelligence to your commerce teams, to your sales teams, and your service teams. And then a lot of those conversations were actually about, hey, like how do we actually onboard? How do we start using it? What would your recommendation be on what use cases do we start with, right? Because like I said, like there is a lot of appetite to start using it, but at the same time, they also want to think of SAP as a trusted partner where I can actually ask them, hey, what would you recommend and how do we get started? Which is always good.
And what did you recommend?
I said like pretty much this. Like I said, like, look, with the direction that we are going with respect to proactive and contextual intelligence, right? Like, which is in a world where everyone is doing AI and every business has a plethora of AI vendors or AI products to choose from, right? There's so many of them. Like, what is the unique USP? I used the word twice. What is the USP that CXAI Toolkit has? And it's one breaking data silos, right? Like, it's a single solution that works across your commerce teams, your sales team, and service teams. It integrates with the customer data platform to bring the customer 360 right in front of you when you need it. Let's say in the example that I was giving, I'm talking with a service agent. How does it bring in insights from e-commerce or from Sales Cloud to me, right? Like, so that I'm aware of, hey, like how best to handle this case. And the other part of it is like the contextual insights. If I'm a sales rep, most of the times I'm working outside of the CRM, which means how do we bring the right insights to you when you're navigating your Outlook or Outlook mailbox, for example, when you're answering a customer query or you're trying to set up a meeting. How do you help you with all of these flows? So that's then there are use cases across all three teams for them to get started on CX AI Toolkit.
Mm-hmm. So it is not the big bang approach, but you are going forward softly and step by step, what I understand.
Yeah, I will. Well, depends. So big bang approach would apply that let's say we have 30 features. You should start using those 30 features from day one. No.
Okay.
Right? Like say it's like, okay, you know what? Like let's pick a couple of use cases that are most important for you, most relevant for you, help
Cool.
you build confidence in the system, and then you expand over to the
Mhm.
other 28 use cases over time.
How do you see the challenge? I compare it sometimes with the hamster in the wheel. The people, if the wheel is running too fast, the hamster will get in a turnaround and will no longer manage to do the proper traction in the wheel. How is the overwhelming input coming from all sides to the users to make some benefit for them and to scale up their education to become smart prompt users to get the benefits? What is your recommendation here?
Yeah, I mean, so one way is like, for example, in the CX AI toolkit, we have a feature called Ask AI, right?
Ah,
And think of it as right like generative answering, which works across all of your productivity data as well as your data in your CRM, data that they have, e-commerce systems, data in CDP, and it brings all of it together. You can ask it questions like, hey, like what are the topics I'm going to discuss with Ralph today? And it will actually give me an answer. Or like, hey, like Ralph is interested in CX AI toolkit, but he also wants to know how does it compare against the other product, right? So I could ask AI that, and as long as that information is in my knowledge base, is in my SharePoint, it is in my OneDrive or any of the email exchanges or in my CRM, it will get me that information. Now, this does not require prompting. This just requires them to express their intent in natural language. And
yeah.
we behind the scenes, we figure out like it involves a lot of like in-house modeling, techniques like RAG, semantic search, also using LLMs to give you the answer. Now, for more advanced users, there is an option to build your own tools, and that's where prompt engineering comes in. And in that case, we actually guide you on how to craft up a prompt, let's say, so that you won't end up shooting yourself in the foot, so to speak. Right? Like, so how do we still allow you to do this while being in that trusted sandbox?
Yeah. Size matters, such as if I am a large enterprise, I may afford it. Do you have also something in your backpack in solutions for the mid-market and SMB participants, which you have in your customer base? Probably not so much, but where would you approach them and support them?
Yeah, I mean, so the great thing about the CX landscape is that like while a vast majority of our customers are what we call to be enterprise or mid-market customers, like we also have solutions like Immersis, right, which is used by everyone. It's used by some of the largest enterprises of the world, as well as it's used by smaller companies. And we have GenAI capabilities in Immersis as well, right, to help the marketing teams. Like how do you actually craft up better subject lines for the campaigns that you're sending out, or how do you help create content that will be more engaging and personalized? So we do have solutions that vary across the customer sizes, but that's based on the products that those customers choose to use, as well as maybe the industry that they operate in, right? Like a typical example would be like someone who could be a mega enterprise, but there is a small business division that pretty much operates for one reason or the other. It might be an acquisition or so on. It operates sort of independently. So they end up using the SMB mid-market solution rather than the full-fledged enterprise solution, or they're looking for something that has that kind of ease of use. So our goal is to cater to across the landscape, but we are of course more focused on the enterprises.
Without any judgment here. So the SAP is one of the vendors who ask a premium for AI capabilities. And really no judgment there. Yeah? So the continuing on the SMB scheme, they likely do not have the additional funds to buy these features. How do you as a vendor navigate this challenge for your customers and help them overcome? I mean, this is like in physics, this is the initiation energy. You need to have a kind of a tunnel effect.
Yeah. So while what we call premium AI, right? Like what you refer to as premium AI. One of the deliberate steps that we have taken is to essentially have this AI based on usage, or to monetize and commercialize AI based on usage. So we have this concept of AI units, right? Like, so if you're an SMB, you'd actually end up procuring less AI units. If you're a mega enterprise, you'll end up procuring more AI units because you have that much more use cases. And then every time you essentially get an insight that's derived from AI, high-level AI or generative AI, it deducts from that particular balance, right? So that's a way for us to essentially enable everyone to get started without actually having to pay the big price upfront. The other part is we also have a lot of premium capabilities which is embedded in the product itself. That's part of the base product, like things like email draft, like creating email drafts, or creating account synopsis, or like giving information about a particular lead, like what are the key problems that a customer has, things like forecasting, things like lead scoring. So all of these capabilities, AI capabilities, are part of the base product that you get when you buy the product. So I think we cover, or like at least we have the opportunity to cover the landscape.
So you created a tunnel effect.
What effect?
There is this tunnel for your customers, so that they do not need to take a leap of faith and first invest big, like in old on-premise times, right? You needed to invest big time before you may or may not got some outcome. The output was certainly there, but
exactly, right. And then this is where you could get started as fast as possible. You could see whether it gives you the right ROI before you choose to double down on it. And it's great for our customers and it's great for us.
Cool stuff. Yeah.
How long do you think that will continue to be the case?
Which case?
The case of consuming bit by bit as businesses move further into the use of AI. Do you envision a point where it's all or nothing? And will we get there?
Will we get? Probably. So now this is the optimistic side of me, right? Like the person who really thinks that AI is going to be that particular game changer. I think the way a user interacts with a digital system is going to change in a massive way. And that holds true for enterprises as well, and business applications as well. Like imagine if someone is about to roll out a new sales tool, and you are an enterprise, right? Like imagine the change management you have to do to train your 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 sales rep to start using that tool in the right way. And then as they start using it, imagine the amount of questions that come in, the back and forth, hey, like my password, like, all of that is geared towards massive simplification, because now you could just use natural language to communicate with a system and get the required input or get the required output, right? It's not very necessary that, hey, you have to go to this place and click this, and this particular page is called this, so you have to land up on this page to do this, right? Like you could just ask the system to do it, and the system will figure out the intent and do it for you. Now, how far away are we from it? Again, it's all about let's bring in value at the first step. Let's get the trust of our customers. And with increased trust, we'll actually see more and more of those innovations leading us towards this utopian thing.
Sticking to CX, and they are in the, let's say, focusing on sales, B2B sales to be precise.
Okay.
So we have, for years, we observed that the first contact a customer, or the first step towards contacting a vendor that a customer does, is well in the buying cycle. So there are all those reports that say 60, 70, 80% of the buying journey are done before the sales rep is contacted at all.
Yep.
So now that, thinking that on, adding a sprinkle or two of AI and generative AI into that, how does that change the role of the salesperson? So basically it says the salesperson is more or less obsolete. So will that strengthen the salesperson? Will it change the role of the salesperson in general? Or extreme case, will it make the salesperson obsolete?
Yeah, I do not think so at all, right? Like, and anyone who has been on, let's say, when you talk with a buyer, right? It's more, sometimes it's more than what the system or the application can do for you, right? Like where AI can help is, and it can help the sales rep and it can help the buyer understand, hey, like these are the capabilities, this is how it compares, these are the things that I'm good at, right? But ultimately, at some point, the buyer needs to know that, hey, I'm putting the reins of my business in your hands. I need to be able to trust the person or the organization that I'm talking to, and I would need like some level of personal interaction to make me comfortable, right? Because someone's job is on the line when they make these calls, right? Like these are not like a Sales Cloud, for example. It's the revenue making machine of every organization, right? Like you don't. So I think the roles of sales rep will only get stronger because they'll get more time on their hands to focus on the thing that matters, which is to build better customer relationships. Everything else is noise. Everything else that they have are things that they have to do their primary thing well. Like, hey, like going into the CRM and saying that, hey, I met with Thomas today and I discussed this with Ralph today. Like this is all for record keeping and bookkeeping. All of those things should be done by AI. As a sales rep, what I want to do is I want to understand my customer better. Like if they have any concerns, I want to be able to resolve those concerns. And those actually require human input, intervention, and conversations.
Okay, so what you predict then is that an increased use of technology will lead to the sales rep be contacted earlier again.
Earlier in terms of time.
To the buyer. Yeah.
Exactly. Or contacted earlier as in like we'll see buyers get a lot of the information that's hard to collect right now upfront and in a fast manner, so that the time that they typically take to contact a sales rep, that will shorten. And the role of sales rep, that will become much more important because now I'm coming in as a buyer. I have already been equipped with all the information that's generally available, right? Like, so I don't need the high level pitch. Now, what I need to know is for my particular business, for my specific business, for my business processes, which are very, 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 like it's very rare to find companies doing things in a similar way. How does it work for me? And this is where the human angle comes in.
Yeah.
So you are telling in a friendly manner, if I go a bit further, that the three of us have to look for new jobs or new specifications of our job as software selection consultants get a bit redundant and obsolete. But
no, again,
yeah.
Okay,
Well, that is a challenge in life. But another challenge in life is if I live or other way around, you are covering the whole world. You're distributing services in the whole world. yourself have your roots in India, you're working in the United States, you have the experience over several cultures and organizations. Now, what I see very often is from other businesses that they have regional pricing. How do you manage as a large organization to cover the needs of a local pricing? Do you do it?
Honestly, I'm actually not aware of the region-based pricing structures, right? Because a good thing about being in charge of R&D and product development is that I don't have to. Like, I still need to know about it, and I still need to talk with customers. We still need to like revenue, but we have much better people in our solutions department and revenue
Fair
department to
enough.
take care of it.
Fair enough, Shardul. I didn't want to bring you in any trouble. It is simply that the needs might be
Yes.
different, because I put the question also in our prep sheet such as, are there regional differences in the requirements? And so one of the requirements might be affordability, but that we took away. Now, from your feedback in the 2 Sapphires you have recently had, were there differences from the regional aspect where people were looking for your advice in different approaches and depth?
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like, so, and again, like they're the obvious ones. They're the obvious differences, which are primarily governed by the data locality laws and rules like GDPR and the right to host and everything, right? So there are, of course, the obvious ones that you have to comply by, like both us and the business who's looking into or evaluating a SAP product. But then also, and you briefly touched upon it, there are like people interact with systems in a different way. Like some of it could be cultural, some of it could be in what stage of digital transformation they are in. And I'll give you a specific example. Like, and again, like just take an example of India, right? Like WhatsApp is huge in India, right? Like the amount of access to digital tools in India has grown tremendously over the past so many years. And a lot of it is mobile based. So people would rather WhatsApp with a business rather than send an email, right? Like email was pretty cool, right? Like when we were growing up, but there is a whole generation that grew in the post-email era, and they primarily think of email as, hey, like this is the business thing. Like whenever I need to keep a record, that's when I do email. Otherwise, all the interactions happen over WhatsApp. I could imagine China is the same with WeChat. So depending on the particular market, depending on the particular region, like we have to constantly evaluate the sort of ecosystem that our products and solutions will operate on top of, right? So you couldn't imagine a marketing or a customer engagement solution operating in India that does not integrate with WhatsApp. That's simply not going to be possible. So
All right.
that would be one example.
Interesting aspect. Yeah, we observed already as we had Jesus with us, and he came to the point that WhatsApp is very favorite tool also in Latin America and in Americas in the South. Yeah. So Marshall, take the ball.
I will, because we are butting up against the top of the hour. I will lead into our famous last words. I would like to ask you, Shardul, what should we expect to see from the investments SAP is making in this over the next couple of years? Or how will they build into the next 2 to 5 years? However you want to take it.
Right. Yeah. So one, we will start seeing amazing customer success stories on how they're incorporating business AI into the key business processes, right? A lot of them is already in the works, and I could tell you, like, it's all looking very promising. And second, all of our investments in business AI over the past couple of years, right? Like there's a certain amount of time and effort that you have to put into building out the foundation. The actual mind-blowing use cases and the mind-blowing advancements are yet to come, right? Like think about agentic workflows and think about like more end-to-end automation and going deep into the business process at some point. Like we will, and we have already, with the recent announcements that we made at Sapphire, and more specifically with the AI toolkit, we are moving away from the basic summarization, the basic draft responses, and going deep. So you'll see more of that coming about.
All right, well said. And with that, I think we should draw our CRM Convo to a close. Thanks to Shardul Vikram for his time and insight. Much appreciated, sir. Thanks to our guests for listening in. And if you'd care to tune in next week, we'll be diving into personalization again with our guest Gabriel Dillon from Ninetailed. Hopefully you'll be able to join us for that. Until then, stay safe and stay curious. We're going backstage.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Did somebody hit the button?